Hey everyone, and welcome to How to Add and Format Tables inside InDesign. My name is Wendy Litteral, CreationDepot, and I'm going to break this up into a few parts. We're going to start with ultimate basics on how to insert a table, and then we're going to do basic formatting, and then we're going to do some styling within the cells, and then we're going to actually set the styles within InDesign so that you can then use that on future tables. So if you have a large document, you can use the same styles throughout your document. So if you need to skip ahead and get to some other part of this video, I want you to go ahead and go down to the description box below for the timestamps. And while you're there, before we get started, I am going to ask that you please make the YouTube gods happy with a like and subscribe, or just put a comment down that says thanks, and that will make everybody happy. So let's get started. Okay, so we're going to start with the absolute basics. I'm going to assume you have your document open. If you don't, just go to File and go to New, and then I'll bring it right up. And then from here, you're going to want to select your text tool. There are a couple of different ways you can place tables, but we're going to go with this one first because this is just like the basic one. You're going to draw yourself a text frame, and within your text frame, you can go to Table, Insert Table, or you can choose Control-Alt-Shift-T. I think it's Command-Shift-Alt-Shift-T on a Mac. And once you select it, it's going to bring up this Insert Table dialog box. And within this dialog box, of course, you're going to have your rows, your columns. Those are very obvious. The header rows are the rows that are going to be at the top of a document, or of a table rather. And then, of course, footer rows are the ones at the bottom. The trick with these is that they are always going to be on the page. So like if you have a table that goes onto page 2 or page 3, it will repeat those header rows on every single place that it's a new instance of that table. Even though it's the same table, every time that table goes onto a new page, it will bring a header row with it. So you will always know which row or which column you're on. And the same goes with the footer rows, it's the same thing. Now, I'm not going to get into this right here because I'm going to take care of this part in the next one when we get into table styles, but I do want to point out when you are creating it, you have a choice here. You can go no table style, basic table, which is like the default style that InDesign gives you when you first start it, or you can select a new table style and go into actually styling your table. Once you understand styles, just want you to know that this is a great shortcut so you can get to it faster, but don't worry about it for right now because it gets pretty detailed pretty quick. All right, so we're going to go ahead with 10 rows and 2 columns and click OK, and that inserts it right here. Now I'm going to undo this real quick because I want to show you the other way that you can insert a table. All right, we're going to keep our text frame, but I want to go to click off of it, and then I'm going to go up to Table, Create Table, same thing, click OK, and now you see I've got this special icon with the table attached to it. The table attached to it, I can do a couple things. I can insert it in, and it will put it into the page. Now this is not inside the text box. See how I can move it around? It's not inside the text box. Let's back up. Now if I want to put that table inside this text frame, I'm still going to have to select it. I'm still going to have to get my table or my type tool. You can also get that just by hitting T on your keyboard. Select it inside where the cursor is and then do the same thing. It's one of those things where if you want to put a table inside of a pre-existing text frame, you're going to have to put the cursor in there so it knows where in this box. I mean, imagine if this was filled with placeholder text, right? And you wanted to put your table right here or right here. You know, InDesign just wants to know where you want to place that table, so you have to have the cursor inside of a text box selected. Otherwise, you can just put that table anywhere. All right, so let's go ahead and go back and get our table created. Put it right here. And that nice thing about placing it this way is you can draw it to size. So that's kind of nice versus being constrained to your text box. All right, so the next thing we're going to talk about is actually working with the tables. Now, to add more rows, it is just like Word. Like I'm sure many of you are familiar with working with Word. All you do is you go to the last cell of your table and hit Tab, and you're going to give yourself a few more rows. When you're working with inputting text, this makes it a lot easier. Now, if you want to add more columns, it's a little bit different. So just kind of like Word, and I think Google Sheets does this too, where you can select the whole column when your cursor changes like that. If you want to select multiple columns, you click and drag. It's the same thing with the rows. You just click and drag, and you can select multiple tables, and then you can perform an action on all of these selected cells. If I want to add a column though, I'm going to put my cursor relatively close to where I want it. I'm going to go in here, and I'm going to find my table. Oop, I'm on the wrong one. There it goes. Okay, you select your column, then you go into Insert, Column, or Row. So you do have to have it selected for it to pay attention to you. And then select how many columns you want to do. And if you want to the left side of the column you selected or to the right side of the column you selected, we'll just choose one for now. And click OK, and boom, there you go. But it doesn't match, it's too big. So there's a couple different ways you can do this, but let's go back to adding in the rows just so you can see that. I'm selecting my rows, I right click, I go to Insert, and I go to Row, Control Option 9 or Control 9, and then click above, there's my extra row. Okay, so now let's go back and fix our table up a little bit. All right, so we've got a table that's too big for our text box, right? So like just to show you, here's our text box, ends here, but the columns that we added, it's just too big. We want to make it smaller. So one of the easiest ways to do this, there's a couple of different ways, but the easiest way I find is to click and drag it to fit within the area that you want it to fit in, and then selecting everything, which is this little angled one over here, or you can do that. I find this is a little bit easier. And then you right click onto the selected area, then go down to Distribute Columns Evenly. Recording with kids home, it's fun. All right, and then you want to go down to, the same thing happens when you do stuff vertically. Like let's go ahead and make let's get rid of a few of these rows anyways, just so it's a little easier. Delete entire row, Control Backspace is the same thing. If you want, you can do that and it will shrink it to this size. Again, you select everything, distribute the rows evenly. But if you decide that you want to make a whole bunch of rows, like let's say you've got like a sub part of your table that you want to make a little bit visually smaller, you can select a bunch of things and then make it smaller and then go to distribute rows evenly, and it will make just those rows smaller. So that's kind of a neat little design effect, that if you have some rows that maybe have more importance, more prominence, you can make them larger, and then if you need to make like a couple specific rows, like a sub thing that you need to maybe put a different background on or something, this is one way to do that. All right, so now we're going to talk about how to actually style the table. Now, I want to point out something really quickly because probably the easiest way to style this is going to be using a different workspace. I have the Essentials workspace turned on. If you're going to do this, I would suggest going to Book so that you have your control panel right here at the top. It makes everything really easy. Okay, so from here, we're going to talk about the different cells. What you want to do, and remember, we're talking about just how to style the cells right now. We're not talking about actually setting table styles and cell styles. So what you want to do is select the cells you're going to do. We're going to do the header first. So you select this, and then we are going to go over to our swatches panel, which just closed because I just changed my work environment. All right, and then I'm going to choose the background of a teal. It's going to kind of do an inverse of the teal, so that's why it looks orange. And then I want to change the text in here to be white. So then I'm going to switch over to the text and I'm going to select paper. Now you can see the inverse of white is black, so I know that that took, but to see it, I've got to click off of it. Now see the header? It's got the blue background and it's got the white text. Now what I want to do is I'd like to have this be aligned to middle. So I'm going to come up to my panel up here, I'm going to hit Align Center, and that aligns it vertically, and then over here the Align Center, I wish these were worded differently, then Align Center here actually puts it in the center horizontally of the column. Now I want to change my Minion Pro over to Roboto Black, and we're going to put it to a font size of 24, and do we want it to be black? Do we want it to be bold? We'll do bold. All right, so really nice, big, very clear. Okay, so that is the styling that we're going to do here. Now, a very quick overview. You can do stylings and cells just like you can the rest of your document, so I'm not going to go too far into getting very specific with styling, but all of your general styles are up here. The ones that are specific for cells that you want to pay attention to, of course, are going to be the centers. Hang on, let's get this right back to the right one. It's going to be the vertical line, and you can have your text go, of course, sideways, just like you can normally. And then over here, you're going to see your columns. See, you can add columns or you can take away columns. It's another way to do it. Remember, when you take away, it's going to ask you, are you sure you want to delete it? Because you might have content there. So just pay attention to that. And then that's pretty much it for that portion of it. One last thing, and one thing you can definitely set with your rows is your strokes. So over here, you can see that the background is the blue that we selected. The stroke for the edges of the column are going to be black in this case. What we want to do is we're going to select a bright color that totally doesn't go, just so that we can see it. We'll do yellow. And then over here, we're going to select solid. Of course, you have just your general ones. All these are in Word as well. And then over here, we're going to bump this up to 6, just so we can really see it. All right, and then I'm going to click off of here. See, you can see it right there. And then I'll even hide the guides. So you can see we have our general right here. It's just got the black outline. And then over here, it's got the yellow outline. Now, we'll go ahead and change that real quick, just so you can see how quickly it is. And then we'll go over this little gadget right here, which is super, super handy. All right, we're going to change this back to 1. We're going to change this back to black. And then over here, we're going to work on changing how we want the strokes to look around it, right? So maybe I don't want a stroke around the top parts of it, but I do around the bottom. Like I want something to separate the header from the rest of the cells. All I need to do is uncheck that one. So see how it's gray now and not blue? And then I'm going to select 0 stroke. Now when I click off of here, you see that that black is now gone. Over here, I want to select the sides. So I'm going to select the top, and now I've got the sides selected, also going to hit 0. That should have worked. Why didn't that work? You know what? We're going to do this way. This is one of those tools you really just have to work with on a regular basis. 0. Okay, so all the things are gone, but now they're all merged as well. So this is the center, so like right here and right here. So if you want to give this a style, in this case, make it go away, you're going to have to select that as well. Now, again, I just want to have a stroke along the bottom here to separate it from everything else. So we will uncheck everything else except for the bottom. I think you can Alt select too, and that will get rid of everything else. Then I want to select 2, and then I will leave the stroke black, and then I'm going to click off of it so we can actually see it. All right, there you go. Now, I want you to notice one thing. See right here, I don't know, can I zoom in it really quickly? Can I see it? Yeah, see how there is a 1 pixel gap right here between this and the edge of the stroke? The only way around that is going to be to give yourself a stroke of the background color. So you might run into that. I just want to point it out. It's something only a designer would notice, but it's there. Okay, so now we're going to talk about actually setting up your table styles. So what you want to do is select, like I've already gone through and selected this. I made it Lato and I made it a little bit larger. It's definitely different than this one. So let's figure out how we can make the whole table look like that. All right, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create new style, because I don't want to use basic table because I might change this throughout my document. Maybe I have a table that has something that's slightly different than this one. I'm going to select table style 1, right? We're good. We got table style 1 selected. I'm going to name it my first table, just to make it its own thing. To get to this window, I should have showed you, I just double click it. You can also right click on it and hit edit my first table. Duplicate style if you have multiple tables but you need one to be a little bit different. This is very helpful. If you hit delete style, it's going to ask you what you want to replace this style table with. Okay? All right, so we're going to edit my first table. The info is based on nothing because this is our first one. And then we're going to go down to cell styles. How do we want the header rows to look like? If you have a cell style, you can select this. In fact, I will show you that real quick. If you go over to column A and we're going to go over to cell styles and hit plus, we're going to call this our Wendy's header cell style. And then we're just going to save it. It's going to save everything about this, the text, the style, the bold, all that stuff. And then you're going to go over to table styles, right click, edit my first table. And then down here, if I go to header rows, I can select Wendy's header style. Now, technically, I did not make these header rows, so it's not going to really make a difference in this case. But if you selected header rows when you built the table, you could definitely select it, and this is where you would select it. Same with footer rows and body rows. You could do this, but then they would all look like that, and that's not what we want to do. All right, and then over here at table setup, you have your table border. If you do 0, turn on preview, you can take a look at what's happening here. There are no borders, and that is useful if you are trying to get very stylistic with your designs. If you want to leave a border, I would suggest maybe knocking the tint down to like 60. It just makes it easier to kind of grasp what you're working with, right? And then row strokes. Row strokes, of course, are the horizontal rows. And then the table row, the one you saw before, this one right here, the table border, is literally the border that goes around the edge of the table. Row strokes are the ones that go left and right, and the column strokes are the ones that go up and down. So pretty simple. We're going to say we want to make a every other row. See how it does it there? Every other row has got that light tint on it. And then let's see if we can make the background color. Wait, first time. These are the strokes. This isn't the fills. All right, we're going to make it red. There you go. So it's real obvious. And then the next one we'll make yellow. Oh, you almost can't see yellow. Let me pick a different one. Green. Okay. And then we're going to up the weight to 3 so we can really see it. And it's got Christmas colors. And then strokes, we're going to alternate pattern. You can do every other one, every third one. This is useful if you've got like a huge data set, but that's not our case right now. And then we're going to hit fills. And this is the one that you probably see the most, where it's like they do every other row of the different shades so that you can really see what you're working with. Now remember, this is not a header column, so it's going to try to do that one too. And then we can knock it down to, you want something light. And then, okay. All right, so now we got something that looks pretty terrible. Let's see if we can make this a header row. There we go. Page. There you go. And then to delete this row because we don't need it anymore, there you go. Now we have a true header column. All right, now we're going to talk about the actual, setting up the actual cells. All right, so now you can see that everything is very nicely styled in our Christmas tree colors. Back here, all you needed to do is, if you just select cell style, all that's going to do is literally give you the styles for the cell. Like if I go in here and I look at the cells, I have a choice between setting up how, if I want padding around my cells, if I want them to be aligned center, aligned at the top, if I want them to be inset a little bit. That's more of like a flow thing, so I don't really know when you would use that. And then over here, graphic, if you need to do something specific for your cells, like if you've got maybe a background image or something. The cell stroke, how do you want that to look? It's exactly the same as what we did before. And then diagonal lines, if kind of like if you need to do a cross through like a calendar, you can do that option here, and that's setting the cell style. That's more useful if I have like a calendar or an events thing that has passed, that kind of thing. So it does have its use. And of course, Xing it out completely. And that's setting a cell style. Cell style is literally only setting the styles within the cell. If you want to change the text, the font, if you want it to be aligned center, if you want it to have a certain color, if you want it to have anything that you would set to a font, is still going to need a paragraph style. So let me bring up your paragraph styles over here. I created this one. Literally all I did was format one, and then I hit select new style and go into the style. Helps if it's actually on the right monitor. And then you can go in here and set up your styles just like you would for any other part of InDesign, okay? And then you'll hit OK, and then you would select all the cells that you wanted to have this paragraph style, and then you would select that style, and it applies it, okay? And that's pretty much it for styling cells, for styling tables, and then duplicating the tables again. And you can always go over here if you need to duplicate this later on in your document when you're working. Let me make my paragraphs a little taller here. All right, I'm going to go down to the next line and I can paste it again, and I can plug in the new information from the new data set. So that's how this works, and this is how you do it when you do your layouts. It is very useful to have the tables within a text layout and not necessarily within like having them float on their own or having them within a like a graphics layout or anything like that, because when you have it inside your text layout, it will actually flow. Like if I type here and I hit return, the table is going to move down, and when you have to make changes throughout a very large document of like 80 pages, 100 pages, that makes a huge difference. So if this has been helpful, I would really appreciate a like or a subscribe, especially comments, because that makes the YouTube gods happy. If you have any questions or if I missed something or left something out, please leave a comment and let me know, and I will do my best to answer it. I'm very active on YouTube. So I will talk to you guys later. Take care. Bye-bye.